Very good afternoon, Rawat sir.
Good afternoon.
Rawat sir, can you hear me clearly?
Loud and clear.
Very good afternoon. Welcome, 22nd Chief Election Commissioner of India, Shri O.P. Rawat, 77 batch, Madhya Pradesh cadre IAS officer, retired. He held many positions, amongst them being the secretary of the Public Enterprise Selection Board was a very, very important part of his career, wherein he was responsible for the formulation of the CSR policies on behalf of the public sector enterprises, which formed basically the forward for the entire Companies Act to be amended for the 2014 Companies Act amendment for inclusion of companies' social responsibility provisions. Rawat Saab was also the Chief Election Commissioner of India, and he held the position, as from the period of January 2018 to December 2018, he was in office, and many key assignments apart from them. Today, he's going to take us through the role of elections in India, the huge, huge event called elections that keep happening or punctuating India's democracy or India's democratic, process over the last 75 years. And Mr. O.P. Rawat is probably the best person to speak about the entire process of elections, the relevance, significance, the gaps and lacunae, and the areas of improvement. As far as India's elections are concerned, a lot of controversies, obviously, with a 140 crore population. Elections are supposed to be, a matter of grave concern for the entire world in India, because what India decides is what is going to probably dictate the entire world's geography, entire world's future going forward. Sri O.P. Rawat, 77 batch, Madhya Pradesh cadre IAS officer. Over to you, sir. Take us through elections in India.
Thank you very much, Amitji. Elections are the well springs of legitimacy to political leadership. And we should realize that elections have replaced as a way of resolving the political conflict, the wars, the battles, and the killings. Those were the means of resolving the political conflict as to who will rule. And elections have replaced that kind of violent thing which used to happen for political succession. When British left in 1947, they in fact predicted doom, that India providing universal suffrage means voting right for everyone who was above a qualifying age, irrespective of their wealth status or their sort of landed property or their paying taxes, because those were the criteria under Government of India Act of 19 and 1935. And that is why out of nearly 17-18 crore, at least only 4 crores were the voters under Government of India Act, and they were electing those representative assemblies under Government of India Act till 1947. But our election machinery and our electorate, unfortunately, our electorate was having very low literacy at the first election. Just about 12%, abysmal. And that is why first Chief Election Commissioner, Mr. Sukumar Sen, had to devise that for every candidate, there will be a separate ballot box with his name, etc., symbol, etc., printed outside of the box. And there was a ballot slip. There were no names on that. In whatever box you drop that ballot slip, the vote is going to that candidate. So if there are 10 candidates for Lok Sabha from Imagine the Herculean task of the polling party to carry 20 ballot boxes, 10 for Vidhan Sabha and 10 for Lok Sabha, and then bringing them back after the. So those kind of things were done by the first election commission to deliver the first election in 1952 on time with due credibility. Whole world was watching, and they delivered it and proved the Britishers totally wrong. And second election was also held with the individual ballot box for individual candidate in 1957. Only after 57 that a ballot paper was devised, and then marking of the vote on the ballot paper started from 62 election. And in one ballot box, all the ballots were put. From there, our voting technology advanced to electronic voting machine, because we found that with ballots, the vulnerability of booth capturing, ballot stuffing, that was on the increase. Second, we found that because of the identification of polling station giving higher votes to one party or one person and lower to others, and if the lower percentage candidate getting into government, there was backlash. So Mr. T. N. Station brought in mixing of ballots, that instead of counting polling station wise, first you mix the ballots of one round. So 14 polling stations ballots were mixed, and then they were counted so that nobody could know as to how many votes that person has got from a particular polling station. This took a lot of time, and counting used to take 3, 4, 5 days. And during this period, so many of counting workers, counting agents were not allowed to go out. They were required to stay in the counting hall. That kind of miserable situation was there, and therefore the electronic voting machine was introduced. And since 2000, all elections are being conducted in India with electronic voting machine. And with the order of Supreme Court in 2013, another new addition came in, that is called Voter Verifiable Paper Audit Trail, VVPAT, because Honorable Supreme Court said that in electronic voting machine, voter is not able to see as to where has his or her vote gone. He pressed a particular button and there was a red light, but it never showed that whosoever's button he pressed, the ballot has gotten to, the vote has gone to that person. So you should devise a machine which can show that the vote has gone to the desired candidate. And this VVPAT machine shows that. As soon as you press the button, the candidate's name, the candidate's election symbol, everything comes on a paper slip. And that paper slip is visible through the VVPAT machine for 7 seconds. You can see if you are satisfied that yes, you press this button and the vote is going to the right person. You are happy. Then this slip will get cut and will drop in the box underneath the VVPAT machine and will remain as hard copy record of the voting with the Election Commission. And this can be kept for 5 years, so that if there is any challenge or any court case or any dispute, this can be counted at any point of time. If the voter was dissatisfied that he pressed button A and the vote is appearing to go to B, he can immediately make a complaint and presiding officer will check and then immediately replace the EVM, the VVPAT, the everything, and then whole polling will be repeated with the well-functioning machines. So that kind of safeguard is there. And another safeguard is there that in any case of complaint at any polling station, during counting, if a candidate complains that on so many polling stations there was some issue, and I want that the VVPAT slips of all those polling stations be counted, returning officer has been authorized to pass a speaking order, and he can order that yes, on these polling stations there was some irregularity, and therefore I am ordering that all the VVPAT slips of these polling stations will be counted. Otherwise, if there is no complaint, as per the Supreme Court order, only 5 polling stations VVPAT slips are counted in every legislative assembly segment. That is the norm. But if RO says no, all polling stations it will be counted, it can be counted. So even that provision is there to infuse credibility among the voters. With this addition, lot of faith and confidence has come in the electorate, and they are very happy that they can see where their vote is going, they can verify, and they feel very happy on that. There is only one project, it is called Electoral Integrity Project, which puts all the elections of different democracies across the world on one yardstick, 11 perceptivity index, and on those it rates them out of 100 how much you get. And you will be happy to know that Electoral Integrity Project rates India's elections on 9 counts as very, very high integrity, very high credibility. Only on 2 counts, India's elections are rated as low electoral integrity. And these 2 counts are, number 1, campaign finance. Because how much money comes, from where it comes, how much money is spent, how is it spent, and whether there is transparency in income as well as expenditure. There, we have to work harder to ensure that this perception index also improves. And second thing is media, social media, paid news, fake news, all these things. There also our elections fare very poorly. On these 2 counts, Election Commission is doing a lot of work to improve the electoral integrity of India's elections somehow. However, a lot more needs to be done. The recent threat which I am foreseeing is fake news, deep fakes, because election period is very limited. From the date of notification to the date of counting, it may be just 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. And if during this period, any character assassination kind of deep fake is circulated through social media, through electronic media, through digital media, the person who is affected adversely is going to suffer huge losses. And elections are going to be vitiated. And therefore, we feel that this is an area where Election Commission should be taking immediate steps and ensure that stringent legal measures are put in place so that anyone, whether a candidate or party or anyone, even from the society, if anyone is found creating a deepfake with a view to assassinate the character of a candidate or influence the election adversely against one person and in favor of the other person, or against one party and in favor of the other party, this will be punished severely. And the trial should be a summary trial kind of thing in these matters. Only then we can protect our elections from this menace which is fast emerging. About campaign finance also, some important reforms are on the table. Election Commission has already written to the government that we have ceiling on an election expenditure of candidates. We should have ceiling on party expenditure as well. Only campaign finance integrity at a higher level. Finally, I would like to say that elections integrity, elections being free and fair should not be seen in isolation. These should be seen in a comparative manner across the world. Because if global society is going one way, you cannot escape, because now we are living in a highly interconnected global village where everything happening at one place affects the people at other place. And therefore, everything wrong or everything good happening in one place affects us from across the world. And therefore, when you compare our elections with those across the subcontinent or across the world, you will find that you can still have pride about our elections, because our elections will stand far above average and in the league of best of democratic elections in the world. I think I will stop here, and if there are any questions, I would like to take those questions.
Rawat sir, thank you so much for 15 to 16 minutes of monologue explaining to us the technical process and the latest developments in the electoral process or the election, entire process of, going through an election in India. You said there are two areas which affect the electoral index of India adversely. One is the campaign spend. Second is the role of media. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. The campaign spend is one area, media is another. Do you think law and order control is something wherein we stand at a good pedestal compared to other countries?
Yes, certainly. We are at a very, very high pedestal, because in the most developed democracy, after the presidential election, when the capital was stormed by the people belonging to one particular party, that kind of thing never happened in our country. Similarly, every time electoral verdict is accepted by all parties, all candidates peacefully, and transfer of power is bloodless. Whereas many democracies, even transfer of power results in civil war. We never had this kind of situation. Like 2014, if you see, one UPA power was voted out, NDA came in, and transfer of power was without any hue and cry, without any violence or anything, any upheaval. So those kind of things in our country are in fact the best. The law and order, the public order, the maintenance of law across the polling, everything is good.
Sir, the idea of my question is to not judge the glass as half empty or half full when we compare it with other nations, but to ensure that we set our own standards and basics are not, kind of fiddled with. And law and order, I think, is one of the most essential, areas of improvement when you consider especially the Lok Sabha elections scenario, especially in states like West Bengal, wherein the entire, duration of the Lok Sabha elections is marred by, political violence, and something which is a matter of grave concern and shame to the country, and globally it affects our index from an election perspective as well. What do you have to say to the role of the central forces, the role of the armed forces when it comes to controlling and tackling such, kind of notorious and such kind of, stray behavior which is adopted by certain states, and I may clearly mention West Bengal is one of them.
In fact, we must be proud of our armed forces, our central paramilitary forces, and state police forces. They do excellent job in elections and even otherwise also. If you take the example of West Bengal, after 2019, in fact, after any election, do you hear that large number of cases of violent incidents registered, got evidence to prove them? No, absolutely no. Because we monitored this after one election. During the election, yes, for media hype and for both the sides hype, this is created. Some sort of atmosphere is created because of certain incidents which are either happening because of the old rivalries, old feuds on land, on other things, and getting a vent during the political humdrum. And that is what happens in West Bengal. And we find that after election, when we go through all such cases which are reported to the police or paramilitary force or anybody, we find that most of them have no bearing on election. They are personal feuds or community feuds, and these can be tackled on a different footing.
Rawat Sahab, you have been defending the role of the forces, not defending, you have been basically suggesting that the elections are bereft of any such deviations as far as law and order is concerned. And the post-election scenario with respect to the FIRs and investigations are a case in point. But to date, we find cases against the parties in power, especially when they have a political vendetta against each other at the center and the region. If I may specifically state, say, for example, in West Bengal, the case of Abhishek Banerjee vis-a-vis the central dispensation, it becomes very clear that even to date, CBI is being used to, or not being used, is being asked to investigate into cases which had bearing on the elections going back to 2019. So this is not exactly happening in vacuum. These allegations do have kind of a impact not only on these elections. Now, the other part of it is the campaign spends. If India scores very badly in that, but it is a very, very important reason or important factor. I mean, it's a very, very important factor, especially in a short-term period, say 3 to 6 months before an election or during the election process, which decides in which direction the scale would move or the needle would tilt in favor of the party who is able to spend more vis-a-vis a party which probably misses out on spending, not only from a cadre perspective but also from a above the line marketing perspective. Huge banners, marketing campaigns, spends on the ground, crores. And where does this money come from? What is the accountability of this money? I mean, the bonds are being allowed, but then till date, what has been the accountability of this money? Black money, everybody, no holds barred. It's completely black money funded, if I may say so. How do you counter these factual issues? Because, see, if the base is something which is questionable, no building would be can be touted as a Ram Mandir, which is being built thereafter. So how do you counter this?
I've already said that on 2 counts we fare very poorly, and one of that count is this: campaign finance, campaign spending. There are issues, and Election Commission is doing a lot on these issues. I've already said that they have suggested to the government to bring in a reform that the political expenditure should have a ceiling so that you exceed a particular limit. As far as black money is concerned, I think Election Commission has enough power to check that. Like electoral bond cannot be purchased with the black money. You have to pay for electoral bond through electronic means or check or from a bank account, and you have to give documents for that. So there are facts that I think cannot be said that it is black money or it is a conduit for black money. Same thing about other contributions to the political finance. But in the public eye, when they see that candidates' expenditure ceiling is 70 lakhs, and in our constituency, if 1,000 will have been used for campaigning, their expenditure alone would have been more than 70 lakhs. That impression is created because party expenditure has got no ceiling. So if a candidate is spending within 70 lakhs, which is the ceiling, and it has been revised now, it is 95 lakhs, can spend 100 crores in one particular constituency. Now that is visible, because that is or 120 times more. So that particular reform is needed, and hopefully our lawmakers will really see the thing, and it will get the light of the day. You said another thing, CBI. CBI thing is political, because it works under an act which is not All India Act. Working in different states, you need permission of that particular state to investigate matters there. And if a state feels that CBI is being used by the Indian government for their own motives, then they can refuse. No, you cannot enter our state and investigate anything. So if political parties feel that there is a misuse of one particular investigating agency, then that particular investigating agency's governing laws and rules can be amended to satisfy each and every political party, each and every state, and then the level playing, and will set everything right in there.
Sir, law and order is the state subject. Now, what happens is during the pre-election period, political parties, opposition parties do try and get a space from the state authorities for conducting rallies and campaigns, which for obvious purposes are not adequately provided or outrightly denied. There are many such instances and cases wherein political parties in power in the state to basically stop or impose sanctions, and even the High Court, we all know that it also doesn't work in a vacuum. It doesn't function in a vacuum. So the High Court orders are also questionable a lot of times, to put it very clear in black and white. So is there any provision to probably let opposition parties or parties not in the power in the state level carry out their political campaigns and rallies to their advantage for the elections which they are facing together in the next few months?
The robust arrangement for permission for political rallies, public meetings, and other gatherings, where the election commission's extended arm, district election officer and returning officer, they have been authorized to ensure that these applications for permission for rallies and public meetings are received online, date and time there, and every application is disposed of within 24 hours. And if you do any injustice, like one application received today, and after 10 hours another application is received, if you deny today application and grant permission for this 10 hours later, you will be caught. That kind of thing can never. Now systems are robust, and everyone will equitably given permissions for these. Second thing, court's jurisdiction is totally barred during election time. Constitution itself says no court can interfere in anything after the notification and before the declaration of result. Only interfere after declaration of result by means of election commission. Courts just cannot interfere in. This is the prerogative of the election machine, the extended arm of the election commission, and election commission wants to assure everyone that everything is done fairly. And if you feel anything is being done wrong, they have given one very good application, C-Vigil, Citizen Vigilance. नागरिक को भी पुलिसिंग का अधिकार दिया है इलेक्शन कमीशन. You download C-Vigil app from election commission's website free, and during election period, if you see anything wrong, that your permission is not granted and somebody who came later permission granted, and if you have the video and photos and just submit, the even district election officer will feel the heat, and election commission will not spare anyone. So all these things we listen in the media or through electronic media or anywhere, these things carry no weight actually. These are only for the time being, people are trying to just make up a case, but in reality, there is no case of that kind.
The verification of the genuinity of the affidavits is a question mark again. Nowadays we find, I mean, after a period, suddenly, there are, basically, false or malified data which is found in the affidavits filed by the candidates. What processes do you have in place to ensure that the right people or people with no criminal records, especially, are filing such affidavits for fighting in such elections?
Actually, if there is a wrong affidavit filed and if it is pointed out by the opposing candidates and if it is proven, the returning officer himself can reject the nomination. But in case there is no complaint and the no rejected, you have a remedy. That option, you can raise the issue in the election petition, election will be put in void. So you have perfect remedies for these kind of issues.
Elections in India are a time-taking process. The phases in which the elections are conducted in some places and states is something which is beyond reason. 2 months, 6 phases, 8 phases, 10 phases, 11 phases. I mean, does it not affect the entire economy and the society as a whole? Because 2-3 months of elections in a particular state, what do you have to say to that? Can't we have that done in a particular day? Can't we have our systems or technology being used to conduct the elections? Because we are not in dearth of manpower, resources. And if we are, then what are we doing to improve that?
Actually, the main constraint is availability of central paramilitary forces, because all political parties say that we have no faith in the state police. So everywhere they want central paramilitary force to be deployed for election. That much of paramilitary force is not available. If the election throughout the country, you require something like 9,000 companies of paramilitary force, whereas we have to make do with 3,000. And that is why you have to resort to multi-phase elections. Like currently, there was single phase election. 10th the police, 13th May count, whole state to 10th May. So enough paramilitary force was available and one day.
Also, there is a question mark about the skewed behavior of the Election Commissioner of India at times when it comes to supporting the model code of conduct in favor of the top boss. And there have been feuds reported between the Election Commission members themselves, where and I can very clearly name them. Mr. Arora and Mr. Lavasa were at loggerheads for that kind of an issue during the 2019 elections, and Mr. Lavasa walked out. Later on, heading the Asian Development Bank. These kind of things, do you think these are all small petty matters and routine and don't really impact the outcome of elections, wherein a lot of constituencies are decided by a mere 4,000, 5,000 margin?
Actually, I set the tone in the beginning that, elections have replaced what? पानीपत की तीसरी लड़ाई, पानीपत की दूसरी लड़ाई, बैटल ऑफ बक्सर, बैटल ऑफ प्लासी, इनसे हमारा निर्णय होता था कि राज्य कौन रहेगा, मार धाड़ मार का इससे होता, उसको इलेक्शन रिप्लेस किया है। और उसमें इतना पीसफुल हो बाद भी जो थोड़ा बहुत स्ट्रेसफुल मोमेंट रहते हैं डिफरेंट डिसीजंस के समय या वो रहेगा, बट दैट डजंट मीन दैट थिंग्स आर unfair, wrong, or against the law, against the rules. Like model code of conduct. We have the unique thing in the world. We are only election commission to have a model code of conduct. And the initiative was from all political parties. there should be a code of conduct which should be enforced by Election Commission, and there should be no backing this, so that every decision can be taken in an active manner, in fair manner, within shortest possible time during election time. And that is working very fine. Only thing is that since everyone doesn't have full facts are only available with the Election Commission. Therefore, decision is based on the facts. As outsiders, not have, they have something from media, something from political parties, something from candidate, and therefore, with incomplete information, incomplete picture, they at times feel that wrong decisions are taken, the party in power is being favored, or some such thing that somebody is not. And same thing about the Election Commission. There are tense movements. When I was there, even at that time, there were tense movements, because all three election commissioners at times are not on the same line. One feels, no, this much is not enough. We should take more action this side. All those things happen, always happen, and will always continue to happen, because it will always be a tense period. And I can give an example. Election Commission is a big thing, a constitutional authority, but at a polling station, very small level of employees are there, presiding, polling officer, constable, head constable, polling agent, like that. And you know, in the most peaceful elections in Bihar, Election Commission lost 17 lives. How much stressful is the polling process there? Imagine, no violence, no fire, no gunfire, nothing, just because of the stress of the process. If the personnel deployed there was not having very healthy physique, succumbs to those stresses, and 17 people died, which we monitored, and we found that this is really huge, because many people may not have registered pressures, not succumb to something wrong and save themselves. But there were so many people who just because of those stresses. So I feel we feel in toto lot of pride in our whole system, our people, our election conducting machinery, our armed forces, and even our political parties. That when under model code of conduct, election said to the top leader that he will campaign for 5 days, and that come out of his house for 5 days.
Rawat sir, during your tenure as the election commissioner, chief election commissioner, you must have also found elections wherein the turnout had been absolutely abysmal. Now, in such cases where the turnouts are completely abysmal, it speaks largely about the entire process having a lot of gaps, wherein the confidence of the electorate is not good enough for them to come out in the open to elect their representatives. Do you think in a country like ours, we should have a benchmark for the minimum turnout for an elections? Constitutional amendments, if required, should be looked into as well?
No, I don't think, because we are an evolving democracy, and we should feel satisfied with a turnout of 67%. In fact, in many democracies, voting is compulsory. That if you don't come out to vote, you will be penalized. Even in those countries, voting at times is 82%, 80%. And in our country, many states like West Bengal, like Tripura, like those southern belt, percentage is very high. Average is 67%. And therefore, we cannot call it as abysmal. In fact, participation is improving, and there is need for this linking of Aadhaar, and I think this is underway. A lot of progress is made. Like I know, Madhya Pradesh, almost 90% linked Aadhaar. So duplicate voters will be removed, and then the voting percentage will shoot up. Because if there are 10% duplicate voters, then 10% will never come to vote. So you are already dealing with 90 people. And if out of 90, 67 have voted, it is good enough. So I don't think there is any need for any law for compelling people to come out to vote.
Cash for votes is a common phenomena. So if cash for votes is the common phenomena, I mean, are there mechanisms to handle such complaints, grievances? Are there ombudsmen? Are there vigilance commissions like we have in the public sector or the central government organizations, the CVC acts? Similarly for the election perspective, do we have any such forums or places where citizens also can lodge complaints, and whether the secrecy of such citizens or such people who blow the whistleblowers could be maintained, the secrecy and the safety could be maintained, because it's a very, very big and complex country.
It is already there. I already mentioned C-Vigil. If anybody is distributing anything for votes, you can just video, photograph and submit. Enough. And you don't have to tell your phone number, you don't have to tell your name. So anonymously the complaint will end up Election Commission, Returning Officer, DO, everywhere. And they are tasked to make inquiry within 100 minutes and tell you what action has been taken. But if you have not given your number, if you have kept yourself as secret, then you will have to see in electronic media or in print media what action has been taken on your complaint. That is one. Second, our electorate has matured enough. And I found in one of the elections where a huge amount of money was reported to have been spent, one illiterate labor telling our surveillance team that, why are you seizing this money? Do you think that I vote for these people who are distributing money? No. I decide who is the best candidate out of the lot. And I vote only for that. That kind of wisdom is there. Second example, in Odisha, in one polling booth, there are 2 electronic voting machines, one for state assembly, one for Lok Sabha. Our voter, who is illiterate mostly and who doesn't have any, modern society's features, goes there, votes for one party for state assembly on one EVM and gives it almost 80% of the seats. And on the other voting machine, EVM, on the same table, it gives more than 40% seats to the ruling party at the center. So that kind of mature electorate we have, so we should not be bothered for these issues. And the Election Commission has made ample arrangements to catch cash for vote and all these things, freebies, etc., flying squad, surveillance teams, CCTV, all those things are there, and therefore huge amount of money and other things are seized in every election.
What is the difference between the freebies doled out during elections as cash for votes and the freebies that are doled out as various beneficial and social schemes by the governments in power at the center and the states, especially to tilt the electorate in their favor? What is the difference?
Difference is huge, because democratically elected government has the authority to spend money on public welfare in whatever manner they decide is the best. And you cannot question it. Absolutely no question can be asked. But during elections, if political party or candidate is distributing money or anything in kind, that is a freebie or that is cash for vote.
Just a month before the Model Code of Conduct, if say BJP in power in the center suddenly doles out a huge bounty for the farmers, do you think it is something which is not going to have any implications on the elections?
Absolutely no. In fact, it will boomerang. Public of India has become so enlightened by now that it will slap a tight thing to anyone doing this. Nobody can get anything out of it.
So disabled, the disabled people, do they have any specific advantages bestowed on them for participating in such process?
Yes, Election Commission has put in place many facilitating features to them. After a certain age, you can ask voting at home. So the polling team will come to your home, get your vote and go away. If you are admitted in hospital, you can vote from the hospital. If you want any transport, it can be organized for you. So all those facilitating systems are in place, and you just have to apply to the returning officer, and those arrangements which are suited to your need will be provided.
EVMs were a question mark.
Absolutely no question mark. EVM is very safe, and with VVPAT in place, electorate's confidence in EVM is perfect.
Can we now, as we evolve, can we look at a single election instead of paralyzing the country's economy, state, society, normal routine life of the common citizen, for months, every year, something happening somewhere, then yeah, it's fodder for the media, but then it's fodder for the power centers, but the common man suffers. So any chance of probably streamlining the elections and merging and any convergence options or opportunities or vision that the government has, or you may suggest to the government as a former CEC for convergence of elections in India at the center and the state levels?
Actually, a lot of thinking, a lot of work, brainstorming has been done on this issue since 2015. And I think everything has been thoroughly discussed, and a sort of framework may be there on the table. Now it is up to the political parties to come on a consensus and amend the constitution and the law and put in place a system where one nation, one poll can materialize. Because all those ills you have listed in your question will go away, and there will be election only once in 5 years.
I think this is a question of timing, which the political dispensation, the decision will rest completely on with the political dispensation in power with the majority in the Lok Sabha. And it's a question of timing. Probably BJP missed the bus in 2019. Let's see when we have the next opportunity of streamlining this convergence process for the nation's benefit. Probably 2047 would be a year when we would be discussing how that particular convergence, brought about by a particular party in a particular year has made all the difference. And as suggested by the former CEC OP Rawat, something like this should have been done earlier. Thank you so much, sir. Look forward to seeing you and meeting you again. It was a pleasure talking to you and learning from you. The nation shall be indebted to you for all the wonderful contributions you've made over your 40 years of cherished career. Thank you so much. Jai Hind. Namaskar.
Thanks a lot, Amit. Thanks.